Alright, welcome. This is a PenTest Plus study session. I'm going to go through some flashcards out loud and explain what they mean and keep it simple. So if you're working, walking, driving, working out, it's an easy way to get the reps in for the flashcards, hands-free. So let's get started. Which kind of penetration test is used by a tester who starts with very little information? Black box test. Think of black box testing as like using a vending machine. You press the buttons and check what comes out, but you're not looking inside to see how it works. You're testing the results, not mechanics. Which type of threat actor operates with a political or social purpose to embarrass or financially affect the victim? Hacktivist. Which type of penetration test would provide the tester with information such as network diagrams and credentials? White box test. In white box penetration testing, the tester knows everything: code, architecture, credentials. It's like giving a hacker the blueprint and asking, how would you break this? Best for deep internal testing. The Mirai botnet is primarily made up of which type of devices? IoT devices, Internet of Things. Which is not a typical requirement for a penetration testing lab environment? Internet access. Which of the following is a good method for validating the findings of a penetration test? Using multiple tools of the same kind. What penetration testing methodology was created by Pete Herzog? OSSTMM, which is Open Source Security Testing Methodology Manual. Which penetration testing methodology was created for the purpose of providing a minimum level of security requirements for handling credit card information? PCI, Penetration Testing Guidance. Your company needs to determine if the security posture of its computing environment is sufficient for the level of exposure it receives. You determine that you will need to have a penetration test completed on the environment. You would like the testing to be done from the perspective of an external attacker. Which type of penetration test would be best? Black box test. In 2017, a number of attacks resulted in the end user's data being encrypted and/or stolen and then held by the attacker for payment. Which type of attack is this? Ransomware. A person who hacks into a computer network in order to test or evaluate its security rather than with malicious or criminal intent is considered as a blank. Ethical hacker. The main difference between an ethical hacker and a non-ethical hacker is that a non-ethical hacker has blank. Malicious intent. Which type of threat actor would have the primary intent of monetary gain? Organized crime. Your company has an internet-facing website that's critical to its daily business. Which type of penetration test would you prioritize? Web application test. Which penetration testing methodology is focused on web application penetration testing? OWASP testing project. You are hired to complete a penetration test. The customer gives you only a domain name and IP address as the target information. Which type of penetration test is the customer asking you to perform? Black box test. You are performing a penetration test for a customer. You identify a client machine that is downloading the contents of the customer database, which stores the customer's intellectual property. You then identify an employee who is exporting the data to a USB drive. Which type of threat actor is this likely to be? Insider threat. A potential customer is looking to test the security of its network. One of the customer's primary concerns is the security awareness of its employees. Which type of test would you recommend that the company perform as part of the penetration test? Social engineering testing. The HIPAA security rule is focused on blank. Safeguarding electronic protected health information. What is risk appetite? The amount and type of risk that an organization is prepared to pursue, retain, or take. Blank indicates that the organization is willing to accept the level of risk associated with a given activity or process. Risk acceptance. A blank box test is a test in which the penetration tester is given some information about the target, but not all information. Gray box. Which of the following is a corporate security team that defends the organization against cybersecurity threats, such as the Security Operations Center analysts, computer incident response teams, and information security, infosec teams? The penetration testing firm has not properly identified what technical and non-technical elements will be required for a penetration test. The scope is increased and the firm finds itself in a bad situation with a customer, as it may not have time to complete all the tests that were advertised. Which of the following terms best describes this situation? Scope creep. REST and SOAP are examples of blank standards and technologies. API. When an attacker is planning a course of action to gain access to a target, what is the initial phase the attacker performs? Reconnaissance. When performing reconnaissance on a network, you determine which devices are alive. What would be the next thing you would want to enumerate on the live devices? Services. What type of reconnaissance would involve using tools that send network probes directly at a target device? Active reconnaissance. Which type of reconnaissance would be used when it is imperative that the target not be able to detect your activity? Passive. When running an Nmap SynScan, what will be the Nmap result if ports on the target device do not respond? Filtered. Which method of information gathering uses publicly available information sources to collect and analyze information about a target? Open source intelligence. You'll see these concepts show up again and again, especially in the PBQs. Don't worry if you didn't catch everything. Just loop it later or listen while walking. It stacks up over time. New walkthroughs drop weekly. Subscribe if you want to keep up the momentum. And good luck on your PenTest Plus journey. You got this.